I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine you are standing directly in the center of a hurricane.
Okay.
The wind is tearing the roof off, debris is flying, and here's the kicker. Every single person in the world is screaming your name, demanding to know why it's raining.
Right.
Now imagine your strategy for survival is to just stand there, perfectly still, mouth shut, not for 5 minutes, not for a news cycle, but for 8 years.
That is a terrifying image. And honestly, in our current, economy of attention where silence is almost always read as guilt or weakness, that feels impossible. It goes against every single instinct we have to defend ourselves.
Exactly. And that is precisely where we are starting today.
What?
We're looking at a topic that, on the surface, it might feel a little like we're dipping our toes into celebrity gossip.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you we are not here for that. We're here to look at a really fascinating case study in human behavior and crisis management.
Right.
We're talking about Brad Pitt finally breaking his silence regarding his divorce from Angelina Jolie.
And just to be clear right off the bat, because I know our listeners value substance, we aren't here to rehash tabloid headlines.
No.
Or to take sides in a legal fight. We are here to analyze a specific piece of writing. It's titled Beyond the Silence, Brad Pitt's Journey to Introspection.
Right. We are strictly looking at this text, which details Pitt's first real, candid reflections since the split happened way back in 2016. Mm. But I have to ask the cynical question up front.
Go for it.
Is this actually a deep dive into introspection, or are we just reading a very, very well-crafted PR pivot? Because 8 years is a long time to craft a narrative.
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's exactly why we need to unpack this source material. Because the text argues this isn't just about image rehab. Mm. It frames the entire saga as a study in how a human being navigates that transition from a messy public scandal to a place of actual personal accountability.
Okay, so let's test that hypothesis. Because the first thing that hits you in this document is the timeline. 8 years.
It's a long time.
Think about who you were 8 years ago. It's a lifetime. So why wait this long? If you had something to say, why not say it in 2017 or 2018 when the heat was highest?
Well, the author of our source text makes a really interesting point about that. They frame this as a case study in introspection versus reaction.
Introspection versus reaction.
Exactly. Most of us react. Something bad happens, Twitter blows up, and your first instinct is to defend yourself immediately. You want to stop the bleeding.
Sure.
What this source suggests is that Pitt chose the much harder, much longer road of, incubation.
Incubation is a nice word for it, but let's play devil's advocate. Isn't silence also a way of hiding? The text mentions that while he was silent, the world was very loud.
It was deafening, and the source establishes that context so vividly. The official separation happened in 2016, and the text uses a very specific, very heavy phrase to describe what was lost.
What's that?
It says they were a relationship that symbolized modern Hollywood royalty.
Royalty. That is a loaded term. When royalty breaks up, it's not a breakup, it's a regime change.
Mm-hmm.
It implies the public felt they had a stake in the kingdom.
Precisely. It elevates the stakes from personal heartbreak to, public failure. Mm-hmm. And the source paints this chaotic picture of what followed. It lists legal battles, media speculation, and ongoing disputes over custody and shared assets.
The storm.
Total storm. But here's the key contrast the author highlights. Mm-hmm. While that external storm was raging, Pitt remained mostly silent.
And the text explicitly mentions the cost of that, right? It says he allowed rumors and headlines to shape the public narrative.
It does.
That seems like a strategic suicide mission. In Crisis PR 101, isn't the first rule to control the narrative?
Usually, yes. By staying silent, he essentially sacrificed public perception in the short term. He let other people write his character arc for nearly a decade.
So why do it?
The argument this text makes is that he wasn't trying to win the PR war. He was trying to survive the internal one.
So if he wasn't fighting that public battle, what was he doing? Because the text describes a shift here. It says we're moving from a story defined by court documents to one defined by a human perspective.
And that shifts us from all that external noise to what was happening internally. This is where the source material really digs into this concept of the turn inward.
Let's talk about that, because the text explicitly mentions the emotional toll this took on him. But emotional toll is a bit vague.
It can be.
Does the source actually give us anything tangible, or is it just soft language to make us feel bad for him?
The language is actually quite specific if you look closely. The source says the end of the marriage forced him to confront personal struggles and rethink his priorities.
Confront personal struggles. That phrase jumps out at me. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's not just, I was sad about the divorce. It implies there were things, internal behaviors, maybe habits, that existed before the divorce that needed to be faced.
Exactly. It implies causality. And this is where the text highlights the major theme of the piece, which is accountability. The author is very clear that in these new comments, Pitt is taking responsibility for past mistakes.
But hold on, taking responsibility is, easy to say in a magazine profile 8 years later when the dust has settled. Is there evidence in the text that this is genuine?
I think the distinction lies in where the blame is placed. The text notes that he is not placing blame on others.
Which is rare in a divorce, let alone a billion-dollar one.
It's incredibly rare.
Okay.
I mean, think about the psychology of a breakup. Our natural human instinct is self-preservation. We point the finger.
Sure, she was unreasonable, the lawyers were aggressive.
The press was unfair. But the source emphasizes that he's acknowledging his own role. He isn't claiming to be a victim of circumstance. He's claiming to be an agent in his own downfall.
That brings up this idea of exoneration versus introspection. Exoneration is, I didn't do it.
Right.
Introspection is, I did it, and now I need to understand why.
Spot on. And the text notes that he views the divorce not just as this painful ending, but as a turning point toward maturity and self-awareness.
Maturity?
Yeah.
That's a funny word to use for a man who was in his 50s when this all happened. But I guess it speaks to the fact that you can be a successful adult and still be emotionally stunted.
Absolutely. Emotional maturity has nothing to do with age or box office receipts.
And to your earlier point about whether this is just fluff,
Yeah.
the source doesn't just leave it at vague concepts. It actually details the work that was done.
Yes, let's look at the specifics, because anyone can say, I've done the work. What does the text say that work actually looked like?
It mentions focusing on self-improvement, which is broad, but then it drops a specific hammer, attending therapy.
Okay, I have to challenge that a bit. Therapy is the standard Hollywood answer now. It's almost a buzzword. Does that really signify a massive shift?
I think context matters here. You have to remember who Brad Pitt is culturally.
The Fight Club guy. He's the Fight Club guy. He represents a very specific era of Gen X masculinity, stoic, cool, unaffected. For a definitive leading man of that generation to put therapy on the record, that is a massive departure from that archetype.
That's a fair point. It changes the texture of the admission. It's not just a PR move. It's a deconstruction of the tough guy brand he built his career on.
It signals a shift in how we view resilience. It suggests that strength isn't about toughing it out in silence. It's about breaking yourself open to get help. And the third action item mentioned is rebuilding relationships with his children.
Which brings the human element right back to the center. And honestly, that's the hardest part to fake. You can fake an interview. You can't fake a relationship with your kids.
Not when they're older.
Especially when they're old enough to have their own opinions.
Exactly. And the text frames all of this, the therapy, the self-improvement, the parenting, as the prerequisite for breaking his silence. He isn't speaking from a place of raw, open wounds. He's speaking from the other side of the process.
Which leads us directly to the most delicate part of this entire deep dive. The other person in the equation, Angelina Jolie.
Right. And given the history of legal battles the source alluded to earlier, the FBI reports, the custody fights, you might expect this breaking silence to be a counterattack.
A chance to finally set the record straight.
And score some points. But it's not.
And this is where I find the strategy or the sincerity really interesting. The source is very specific about this. It says he refrained from criticizing Angelina Jolie directly.
That word refrained is so significant. In art and design, we talk about negative space, the area around a subject that defines it.
You're right.
Here, the negative space is what he doesn't say. He doesn't attack. He doesn't defend specific allegations. The text describes his tone as one of restraint and respect.
But is that restraint, or is that just knowing that attacking the mother of your children in the press is a bad look? I mean, maybe he's just being smart.
It can be both, but look at how he refers to her. The text notes that he explicitly recognizes her role as the mother of their children.
That's a very specific designation.
It is. By using that phrasing, he isn't defining her as his ex-wife or his adversary. He is defining her by the one connection that is permanent.
The children.
He centers the children in the narrative. It's a way of acknowledging that no matter what happened between the two adults, that shared bond is the priority.
There's another insight in the text that I found really poignant and maybe a little surprising. It says he acknowledges that both of them have been profoundly changed by the experience.
That is a very empathetic acknowledgement. It moves away from the hero/villain narrative that the tabloids love.
Actively.
It suggests that this was a traumatic event for everyone involved. It levels the playing field in a human way, not a legal one. It's an admission that there were no winners here.
So what does this all mean for the future? Because the text mentions a desire for peace rather than reopening old wounds,
Okay.
which sounds lovely, but is peace actually possible after 8 years of scorched earth?
It seems the goal has shifted. The source tells us this is about moving from conflict to acceptance.
Conflict to acceptance. It feels like the final stage of grief.
In many ways it is. And the source outlines where Pitt is heading now. It says his future is defined by personal growth and a quieter life away from constant controversy.
A quieter life. It's funny, we started this deep dive imagining him standing silently in a storm, and now the source suggests he's trying to walk out of the storm entirely. But do we buy it?
I mean, can a megastar actually have a quiet life?
Right.
Maybe not quiet in the way you or I have a quiet life, but quiet in terms of the narrative chaos. And I think that's why this source text argues this moment is so significant.
Why is that?
It humanizes the headlines.
Break that down for me. How does it humanize them?
Well, for 8 years, the story of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie has existed, as the text says, only through court documents and tabloid headlines.
Right. Cold, hard, adversarial thing.
Exactly. Legal filings are designed to be aggressive. But by breaking the silence with introspection instead of anger, he's reminding the public that there are actual human beings behind the legal filings.
It changes the genre of the story. It stops being a legal thriller and starts being a memoir of personal growth.
Precisely. And the payoff of reading this source isn't getting the dirt on the divorce. The payoff is seeing that even in the most public, high-stakes conflicts, it is possible to choose introspection over revenge.
That is a powerful takeaway. The text suggests that the silence wasn't empty.
Yeah.
It was active. It was an incubation period.
An incubation period for accountability. And that's the crucial part. If he had spoken too soon, it would have been just more noise. By waiting, it became, well, maybe wisdom.
So we've tracked the timeline from the 2016 split, through the years of silence and legal noise, all the way to this present moment of candid reflection.
We have. And what we've seen, based strictly on this text, is a man trying to pivot from a public spectacle to a private piece.
It really makes you think about the value of time. We live in a world that demands instant statements. If a celebrity sneezes wrong, the internet demands an apology video within the hour.
It's the hot take culture. We demand immediate reactions to conflict. We conflate speed with honesty.
Exactly. But here, we have an example of waiting 8 years.
And that raises an important question for everyone listening, not just about celebrities, but, in our own lives.
What's that?
Is there a lost value in waiting to speak until you actually have something introspective to say?
That is the real challenge, isn't it? Because waiting is excruciating. When you feel misunderstood, you want to scream.
You do. But think about it. If Pitt had given an interview in 2017, it probably would have been defensive, angry, maybe blame-filled.
For sure.
It would have added fuel to the fire, would have lived on the internet forever as this moment of ugliness. By waiting until you've done the therapy and the work mentioned in the text, the statement becomes about healing.
So the silence wasn't just a lack of noise. It was a necessary tool for the perspective to mature. It's almost like a slow PR movement.
I like that. Slow PR. We often think of silence as passive. But in this context, silence was an active strategy for self-preservation and eventually growth. The text Beyond the Silence ultimately argues that the quality of what you say is directly related to the amount of work you've done on yourself before you say it.
Well, on that note of wisdom, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. We've gone from the storm to the silence and finally to the introspection.
It's been a fascinating look at the human mechanics behind a very public story.
As always, thank you for listening. We hope this gave you a new perspective on a story you probably thought you already knew.
Keep questioning the narrative, and remember, sometimes the most important work happens when no one is watching.
See you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye.